Do not do this, it sounds like.
You'll just keep hitting brick walls. Cost difference is monumental.
Start with the end in mind.
Either need to go all in or don't.
You have to take risks, but
Quality of builds is substantially increased on the Gold Coast.
it sounds like worst case scenario. All right, buying Gold Coast. Welcome back this week. Really excited, actually. We're going to uncover and reveal a new series we're going to dive into based on the feedback we're getting. It's nearly like a finance masterclass. We're going to unpack different topics very specific to Gold Coast buyers right now. And we're going to have different experts and different opinions throughout. But first and foremost, today's guest for our, I guess, first ep of this new series in buying Gold Coast, finance unpacked. We got the one and only Oliver Grant. So he's the director of Stones Throw Finance. Oliver himself as well has been AFG Broker of the Year, numerous times. He's got all the accolades and whatnot. But most of all, something I know with Oliver, he knows he can talk, but he also walks the walk too. Like he's done knockdown rebuilds on the Gold Coast and some of the suburbs we always talk about. He's working literally with some of the best knockdown rebuild clients on the Gold Coast. Some of the builds you've seen, it's probably Ollie financing it. So we're actually going to uncover creative lending and construction loans, just all things knockdown rebuild, kind of how are people funding these things? How does it work? Ollie, mate, I'm keen to unpack on this finance unpacked.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Nah, mate, good to have you on here. Mate, I think number one, just straight off the bat, what have you seen from, I've obviously known you for a while and you were a client back in the day too. Just overall, what have you seen the biggest shift in the Gold Coast since you kind of entered the market as just a general buyer? You've done a build here, you've kind of working with a lot. What's just the general consensus of the Gold Coast right now?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of money around and there's a lot of people with deep pockets prepared to spend that money for the right product.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of two-factor thing. One, if you produce a quality product and a unique product, people have the funds and will spend it. And equally, if you produce a run-of-the-mill product or you haven't engaged the right team, people will call you out on that, or the price will call you out on that. I think there's been a huge or monumental shift in the last 5 years of wealth in the Gold Coast, and people moving up from other parts of the country and internationally. And the Gold Coast historically, and probably even still, is underpriced. And so they're prepared to spend the money if you give them the product. But they will also be very critical and can be very critical if you don't. I found that out firsthand. I did a project and we got huge numbers through open homes, and people are definitely open to giving you feedback, which is good to take on for the future.
Yeah, 100%. And so the key takeaway there straight off the bat, like with the Gold Coast, sounds like obviously the wealth gap is rising in terms of like the amount of money coming into the city, which I definitely agree with 100%. And what you're saying there though is, in order to achieve the maximized results, just say if you're doing a renovation or new build and achieve some of the wealth that's coming in, don't cut corner. Potentially, like, just make sure you do it right, get help, because you can achieve, but you'll also get found out, because I'd say most of these buyers are also quite astute.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think getting the right team, or getting a team, identifying before you go in what your weaknesses are, whether it's on finishes, where your strengths and weaknesses lie, and making sure that you're filling those weaknesses with people that's their strengths. Engaging architects early, interior designers early, builders early, engineers, wherever you're, because trying to do the whole thing yourself. Yeah. I think the Gold Coast has moved past that, and the products that you're trying to achieve, or the land value has got to the point where you need to have that really, really strong product at the end. Yeah. And you just can't do it by yourself. You need a team around you. Yeah.
What I want to unpack, finance unpacked, Ollie, is knockdown rebuilds, renovations everywhere right now on the Gold Coast. There's a huge appetite for it, for consumers to secure a block, knock it down, do a mad build, and it sounds like it's all profit and juice at the back end, right? we'll unpack it because I want to understand. You're financing a lot of these behind the scenes. I want to unpack, how do people finance these? It's not your standalone, go to the bank, give me a loan, and then I buy a house and pay it off over 30 years, because some of these people are flipping, selling, using equity, using cash, different entities. So where I thought we'd start is just overall, how are you finding most of the successful knockdown rebuild specialists funding these kind of projects on the Gold Coast right now?
So firstly on that, you definitely need to go to a broker, because the difference between banks is monumental, and that's for
Huge.
each different customer. So
Agreed.
trying to go directly to a bank, you'll just keep hitting brick walls.
Can I just say, biggest lesson I learned in my early 20s was that broker versus bank scenario. Really good advice. I just wanted to add that in. Definitely.
Yeah. And I think being open and honest with what your goal is with that broker at the start. So don't try and hold your cards close to your chest, or we just need 100 grand to do this, or we need a little bit more, we need a little bit more. Say, look, this is what we ideally want to do, or this is what I've been advised to do, or this is the best use for the land. How do I get there? And be open to then taking that advice. Okay, well, this is what you need to do. It may be that you can do it immediately or in the short term. It may be like a longer term play, or it may be a play where you're limited, or your best option is to get it to a point and then pass it off, because you don't want to get halfway through. Like with finance, you definitely want to have all your money up front, or know that you can get to the end goal and have that money up front.
So just quickly on that, I want to unpack that. So what it sounds like, what you mean there is, do you mean like have all your money kind of set, like everything set up, the amount of cash or whatever you're able to lend up front at the start of before the build even starts?
Yeah, for sure. So get a clear idea what that full budget is.
Yep.
Make sure you can get that money. If you can't get that money, or and I do say this to people often, is maybe your best use is to package it to a point where you can add value to then sell to the next person. So if you've had a piece of land for a long period of time, it's had huge capital growth, and adding a DA to that will give it a really big boost to then be able to pass it off to a builder who can then execute the build if you can't get the finance.
Gotcha.
Instead of trying to cut corners or trying to do a quick reno, because as Matt, you probably see, like the value of your land is so high that you either need to go all in or don't start. And finding out that from your financier beforehand, and get different opinions. If you go to a broker or you go to a bank and they say you can get X, ask 2 or 3. I mean, you're going to do that for everything else. So don't be limited by someone else's limiting beliefs or limiting knowledge. If you believe there's ask and ask again. But yeah, I definitely see that now is, if you've bought something 5 years ago and it's doubled or tripled in value, and you are on a corner block in a suburb where, duplexes are going well, but you can't get that 3 million to do the build, then maybe you get the DA and then you sell it off to a builder who wants to be able to start on that project straight away and doesn't want to have the lead time of getting the DA and the slow process. And that might be your value add. And then you might be able to get that money, and then you go and find the next project where you move into, and then you get the DA, and that could be your process.
Your process, yeah. That's a really good point. I just want to pause there because I really like that. So what people don't realize, just quickly, if we can unpack that, Ollie, is the difference between, site acquisition, whether you bought it now or you might be just sitting on the owner occ that you've had for years. How long is the process from, all right, I want to do a knockdown rebuild, you need this thing called a DA, development application. How long's generally that process there before actually starting, someone actually knocking it down roughly?
It's at least 12 to 24 months.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. So that's a huge one to even understand. Like some people think, all right, I want to do a knock. It's going to start like 3 months, 6 months. Lag time is huge. 12 to 24 months. You heard it there. So what I'm hearing there, Ollie, is all right, if you get to the point of funds and you can complete the DA and it's all ready to go to be knocked down. So at the point of DA, is it fair to say then you can pretty much start knocking it down? Like you could pretty much knock it down straight away. Is that right?
Well, yeah, it depends on if you've got all your ducks in a row, you've got your engineers, you've got your builders, you've got your people sorted. And the better quality of people around you will make those timelines potentially shorter,
Yes.
definitely more accurate. They're definitely not going to lead you up the garden path. They're going to give you a definite kind of time frame on those things.
Yeah.
But yes, the belief that you can buy something today and use all your funds and really stretch yourself because in 18 months you're going to be able to sell it and take a breath. It's not true. It's
Yeah.
a 2 or 3 or 4 year project.
Yeah.
And so you need to know that going in, or you need to, like I said earlier, you maybe get that project to someone. It is turnkey for someone else. The plans are
Yes.
done, the groundwork's done, and then you pass it off to a builder or someone that can then execute
Yep.
much quicker because
Yep.
for them, they don't want to have the time, or they don't have the time, or they don't want the holding costs. So yeah, I guess it's not necessarily not letting your ego get in the way of, hey, I've got to do the whole project to the end. Maybe you're a different, and at the flip side, you might be the other end. You might be buying those sites
You might
that
be
you
buying
can do it
things
straight away.
just straight away. Yeah. And that's a really good blind spot that people might not be aware of, is the process of getting it to DA and letting a builder execute it all. So what I heard you say at the start, tip number 1 is get all your finances in order. So you've kind of got the parameters on budget. If you go through the numbers and you're looking at it and the process to do the DA, and there's only a little bit left, what you're saying is instead of just trying to scrape that little bit to get through the build, it's like, hold on, if you're not going to go all out with the build, let a builder take over it from there. And that's probably your best profit play versus going through the whole build, smaller budget, scraping by, more
100%.
risk. Is that what? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then that, money pressure puts time pressure, puts poor sale price. Then the whole time
True.
you need to get out of the situation, or other people, your financier maybe is putting pressure on you to get out of the situation, get a pre-sale, sell something now. And then obviously that leads to good buying opportunities, but poor selling.
Or sell it. Yeah. Yeah. And then, all right, what about in terms of how are people structuring these? All right, I am someone, I've got a owner occ or principal place on the Gold Coast right now. The thing's tripled, like most of if anyone bought, just before COVID, I'd say we'd nearly tripled it.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the first step to kind of, all right, I'm thinking about doing a knockdown rebuild. How does it look from a finance point of view? Like, what are some of the different creative lending strategies people can do?
Sure. So there's definitely a couple of banks now that will actually finance. So, up until a few years ago, doing an owner builder, no matter what size your building company was, trying to build your own projects, and a lot of larger builders or successful builders will know that. They're trying to get money from a bank to do their own build is near on impossible. That's not the case anymore. There is mainstream banks that will finance your own build as if you're a customer. So if you've got a building company, you can literally have a fixed price build contract with yourself and fund it as if you were funding it for a third party customer. So it allows you, the caveats on that is that the bank needs to see that doing this build isn't going to negatively impact your business. So if your building business does one build a year, well then doing your build, of course, is the only build it's doing that year. But if your building business does 10 builds a year, doing your own build isn't going to stop your other income coming in. And that's the kind of rule of thumb that the banks use. Is this going to negatively impact? No, it's not. It's just another build. You've got the process. They will fund it on normal circumstances.
Interesting.
And that's we've done that for multiple builders now, where we've just done it, their building companies done a fixed price build contract with themselves and we've funded it like normal.
Interesting. Just on that, Ollie, I just want to unpack that a bit. So what you're saying there is, just like when you're you might be a first homer, just going for a loan, they assess you on who you are, your characteristics, all those. So it sounds like it's the same in knockdown rebuild territory. If you're say an owner builder and your company's been going for 5-10 years and you got a reputable brand, you're pumping out builds every single year, the bank looks at you differently to, say, first time builder.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I guess, for builders listening or for people doing the builds listening, if you haven't experienced already, get used to banks asking you for all of your information if you're doing a build for a client, because banks fully assess the builder. Are you capable on a cash flow basis, on an experience basis to do this build? And like I was saying earlier, you would know this, the quality of builds has substantially increased on the Gold Coast. The end sale price has substantially increased. So I see a lot of the time this adds to the time delays and this adds to your holding costs, where a customer will come to me and they've engaged a builder to do this amazing, beautiful individual property, and then we get to the end and the bank will not sign off on the builder because it's a too big a step for the builder.
Wow.
And so, yes, I guess as builders listening, expect that it's not unusual or it's not something to be fearful if your customer or if the customer's bank asks for all of your information as if you're going for the loan.
Yeah.
That's normal. And likewise, as a customer, just be aware that, and again, get in early, ask those questions early, ask your financier or your broker early around the builder, because you don't want to get to that and then that starts, and you've done a 3 or 6 month process with a builder and his whole team just for the bank to say, no, we won't use that builder.
Well, I'm just thinking, sounds like worst case scenario, do not do this. It sounds like just starting the process, engage a builder, paying for the builder, let's get started. And you haven't kind of done the whole finance piece yet and got all the final approvals and things like that, is it?
Yeah. But in that same breath, engaging people engaging your finance early, knowing what your budget is, because that will determine what your other things. You don't want to go off on this tangent, build, design this $5 million beautiful house, and then you can only borrow a smaller amount, and that's just been a waste of time. But I think as well, I do see, as build costs have increased, you do see people with unrealistic, and builders would see this all the time, unrealistic expectations of what you can build for a budget.
Yeah.
And so, they come to a financier. I've got a lot of experience, like you said, in building, so we'll give people that, but other bankers maybe don't.
Yeah.
And so they'll come to a financier and say, hey, I need to borrow $1 million to build this house, and they get the approval, and then it's just a complete waste of time. So if you haven't built anything in the last 5 years, ask questions now before around what build costs are.
Yeah.
Whether it's with developers, whether it's with friends that have gone through it, whether it's with agents, whether it's with builders themselves, to get an idea of what it's going to cost to build what you want to build before you start incurring cost yourself.
Yep. It sounds like it's probably the biggest misaligned expectation is what a build will genuinely cost. Would you agree?
100%.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's a really good tip, because I'm thinking to add value to the listeners here, like the worst case scenario nearly sounds like, definitely not doing your DD from the get-go, like on costs. I think the next big one is the expectation of what a build will actually. If you go all in, get your finance, and you start, and you've got this envision, and you've got the drawings done up, and you're leaving it tight already. I mean, there's delays. There's it's a tough time for builders at the moment, so prices are changing, things like that. So that sounds like a very scary scenario where the builder's coming back to you for increases, but you don't have the money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that happens too on the Gold Coast. Yeah.
And you, as a rule of thumb, a bank does not want to be involved midway through a build. They want to give you the money up front, and they want to see that you can complete the project. And getting finance midway through a build, as listeners would know, is very, very, very expensive.
Is it?
To the point where it probably eliminates your entire margin.
Do you mean from interest or
from big? Yeah, you go into a second tier lender.
Gotcha.
The costs.
Yeah. Because it's risky.
It's super risky. Yeah. Because banks don't want to see that you haven't done your numbers correctly. They don't want to see that you haven't done your own DD, and there is a bit of naivety there between banks and customers at certain builds, certain dollar values. So rule of thumb, if you're building for under $1 million, the bank won't give you much guidance. They will just assume that you've done your own checks.
Yep.
And over, say, $2 million, the bank will then really take over, and they will engage quantity surveyors, and they will engage people that will hold your hand. And again, it's having that open relationship and open conversation with the builder. If you know that your budget's tight, tell your builder that, so they don't run off and do changes, or they don't ask you for, do you want to put a nicer kitchen? Yes, I do. And then hit you with a variation, which you can't fund, because you don't want to get into that situation where it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. Yep. So it sounds like at all costs, try and limit the scenario happening of variations, but you don't have the money, and then you need to go to the bank mid-build. Sounds like it can get very messy, because then I'm assuming you go to the bank mid-build asking for more money. That's super risky. So their risk appetite, obviously a bank will only lend for base of, so they're going to second tier the interest. So then your cost at the end is literally like the margin just kind of blows out. It's just like, why did
disappeared.
I
Yeah,
go through 3 years of stress
Yeah.
for like coming out?
And that's maybe why, if you don't have that, if that's not your skill set, that's why you sell the land up front to someone else
Yes.
that has done multiple builds and let them run with it. Yes, you leave a little bit of margin on the table for them, but you get your money out and you do the next thing.
Money out quicker too, right? Because once a build, the DA, you said sort of 1 to 2 years at the moment. What's a general, again, let's use Gold Coast, 600 square meter flat block, we're not talking crazy slopes or anything, just your standard block. What do you reckon at the moment for a 4-bed home?
If you're out of that in 12 months for a unique home, I think you've done exceptionally well.
Yeah.
I would say it's
Wow.
12 to 18 months, depending on,
There's a lot of variables, weather.
a lot of variables.
Yeah,
and the weather seems to be
Raining
very
all
wet
the
at the
time.
moment. Yeah. Every day it rains, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that adds delays. On that build cost and build quality, like I was saying before, as I've experienced, or I am experienced now, going through about to start a project or looking at a project, is the materials made up, for the structure of the home monumentally changes the cost. Whether you go lightweight or you go, concrete construction.
Interesting.
And there's obviously, positives and negatives to both of them, but the cost difference is monumental. And again, just I think working back, the things I maybe learned out of the last project is working back from the start, engaging who your agent is early and saying, okay, if you're building something to sell, getting real-time data from yourself, from your team, from people that are in the market, what do people want? What do customers want? And if it's your first time, or if you haven't done too many renos before, get data from the market as to what people want. Do people want 4-bedroom? Do people want 5-bedroom? Do they want to study? And building to that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you can run off on a tangent and build something beautiful or build something easy or hard. And then find out at the end, the market doesn't actually want this.
It's not actually what the market for that specific location want. And yeah, that's definitely a common one. And we've heard from a lot of builders we've had on the show too. That's a big one. What about, I just wanted to touch on the whole, just so people who don't understand, own a builder, can we just explain that? So that's a builder who is essentially financing and building their own home with their own construction license.
Correct. Yeah. So you can get an owner builder license, which is, you or I doing, a training to learn how to do that. And I use that same.
Could anyone off the, could I just get my built? I could, yeah.
You could. Can you then deliver the project?
Oh, yeah,
arguably?
true. Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah. So I could get theoretically the owner builder license, but
getting finance would be near on impossible for that. If you're just a run of the mill, no experience, get your own license, a bank is going to look at that.
Because they're like, where's your history of doing a build?
But if you're a large building company and you're borrowing the money, historically you were put into the same bucket, so you were still. And the theory behind that from a bank's point of view was, well, because all the bank wants to do is they want the project to be finished, so then their risk massively reduces, because then they have a finished product that if something goes wrong in your loan, they can sell that product. A half-built house obviously has a very much lesser sale price. It's increased risk. So their theory historically has been, no matter what the size of your building company, if money gets tight doing this build, you're going to go off and do customers' jobs because you need the income to live. Therefore, our project that we have finance on or we have debt on as the bank is going to stop and slow down, and our risk increases. There is a couple of banks that are really owning that space. I'll call out Bank West on this. They're great at it, where they will look at that differently than has ever been looked at before, and say, look, if you're a large enough company and you're doing enough builds and this just slots into your normal workflow, well, then we will, like I said earlier, they will lend on that on normal parameters, which is an absolute game changer. And most builders I talk to have no idea that that's happened. And the ones that were funded, they were baffled because historically you just couldn't do it. You either your building company had to incur the cost, you had to cash out of other properties and just have all the cash there. And on that thing it's impossible to know everything. I think it's important to find people that are really good at what they do, and then finance is definitely one of those key, and it's allow them to do what they do. Go to them, this is what I want to do, how do I do it? And then take their advice. Often, or not often, but sometimes I'll see customers that will come and they've read something or they've done something and they go, I need to do this and this and I've done this. Like, do you go and tell your builder how to nail, frame up a door? No,
Yeah,
you allow them to do it. And I think in all that process, you need to find a good team and trust your team. Let them do what they do and don't question it.
Let everyone in your team play their roles
Yeah.
effectively. Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's a huge point too on the difference between, I guess, finance professional, i.e. broker versus broker, right? Like some brokers might be aware of these, because correct me if I'm wrong, for anyone listening, the changes in the finance space with banks and their policies, it's forever changing. Hey, like
Correct. Yeah.
Bank West are doing it now, but maybe NAB might do it, and they've changed something, and then they're doing different deposits for people in this industry. Like it is always changing. So you got to make sure whatever broker you're using, like they're in tune. That's why experienced people count, because a broker mentioning this, for example, that scenario, could potentially allow someone to get into a market that, on the last 12 months, like 13.3% gold. Like if you didn't get into the market and you only got in 12 months later because you didn't know that rule back then, you missed out on a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
Like massive amount of money and opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So it just you just got to know some of these things. So just quickly on that. So that was just for my knowledge. So the rule there, so some like Bank West, you mentioned Bank West is one of them. So they're allowing owner builders.
They're allowing people that own a building company to do their own build.
To their own builds, yep.
So your building company gives you individually or whoever owns the property a build contract as you would a normal customer, and they will fund it on drawdowns as they would a normal customer.
Gotcha.
No other rules. The overarching rule there is that your building company has to be large enough. It has to do more than like one, say, project a year. Because if it does one a year and yours is the one for that year, the bank will say, well, we're funding your build, but we're also funding your lifestyle and your income.
Gotcha.
If you just slot in, if your building company is large enough, then you can do it. There's just so many, as I've done this for 15, nearly 20 years, every situation is so unique.
Yeah.
Your situation is unique, but everyone's situation is unique. And you just need to go and find the right person, find the right broker, find the right financier, and be open with them. Put all your cards on the table, good or bad, and allow them to do what they do, and not try and pigeonhole. And at the same time, what I spend a lot of time doing is, in that same breath, is you need to engage your accountant or your tax advisor or whoever early, because that can make a huge difference.
Huge.
On the way out, like Australia, amazing place to live, but it loves to tax you.
Yeah.
And there's, Australian tax is one of the most complicated in the world.
Yeah.
So knowing that up front, again, you don't want to get to the end, you get your sale price, you pop your champagne.
Yeah, you're just like, how good's this?
Yeah. And then the ATO is like, well, hang on.
Yeah.
And then the bank's like, hang on. And then you go, oh, I did that for nothing.
Yeah.
Knowing up front is so key. Engaging the right people up front, getting the right information and that will determine if the project's good for you. Whether you are looking to buy, and it might be that you need to bring in a JV partner. You need to look at buying something together. And I see that more and more now as costs are getting higher, or projects, as a couple of mates will join up, a couple of couples will join up, and they'll buy something together because they've engaged us earlier, engaged a financier earlier. Hey, as a unit, you guys can borrow this, or you guys can spread the risk, opposed to trying to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And getting into falling into those traps, I guess.
I was going to ask on that one, Ollie, the full-time, like this is a common one on the Gold Coast right now, like very common builder who's, in their game and doing their thing. They're now seeing some of the fruit that it brings on the Gold Coast, and they want to start doing their own now, and they eventually want to do full-time. They want to cut the client work and go full-time, build, sell, we live off that, and, rinse and repeat. You've worked with a few people that have made the transition from client work to their own work. What's the key observations from the finance piece that they've done really well to be able to get to that point of like, no client work, just this is purely us? And then, and also on that, how are they doing it? Like, how do they just live off full time doing builds?
Yeah. So, how do they get there is, they need to have done the grunt work in their own business for long enough, and not see the shiny light and try and jump too early.
True. I was just going to say, sorry to cut you off. the key tip there, what I'm learning, and based on what you said before, why that's so important is because the bank will actually, if you've got some runs on the board doing client work, they're going to lend easier.
Correct.
Over here, yeah.
Yeah. And also, if you've, from the client work, you've used those profits and you've generated wealth from that, then you're in a position that you can transition, because transitioning from client work where you're getting paid monthly maybe, to doing your own work where you're getting paid every couple of years, much lumpier, that, you can only do that, or you can only do that successfully if you have the funds behind you. Also, banks definitely look at, they are creatures of habit. They're creatures of historical data. If you come in as doing that transition and say, hey, look, I've been doing client work for 20 years, but I've also done 5 builds. Here's my last 5 builds. Here's my profit I made on each of them. Banks want to see that you're profitable. Then they go, okay, rightio. Well, then, then you can transition to that, because historically you've turned out a project every 2 years. You've made money on that project every 2 years. And so you can go and do this. Of course, you've got the fallback option, and the bank will have common sense to say you've got a fallback option of going back to client work, but they want to see that you're not. Yeah, they'll look at that more closely, as they should, and as your broker should, because they should be your finance, guidance. And they should ask you those questions, and sometimes those questions are tough to actually look at things. Are you ready to make that move? Do you have the numbers behind you, the cash behind you? Because from what I've seen, projects go really well if people have the experience and the funding to ride out challenging times. If they don't, and definitely, I've definitely seen, and you've probably seen the same, as the prices have increased dramatically in the last 5 years, sale time on those larger projects can also push out. It's, because you're asking for a much larger number. There's a smaller window. People aren't pressured at those higher numbers. They're not buying with emotion. They're buying with their head. That you've got to be prepared to wait it out. To get the right price. And if it's not the right price, then accept that maybe it's, you wait.
That's a really good point. So on that, trying to get to full time. So that's first piece is like, getting some, your client work's doing great, got some experience there. Most importantly, you've used some business profits for a bit of a war chest for these hard times that definitely do come. Every builder we've interviewed on this, no one has said it's been smooth sailing. So it sounds like having buffers. All right, you've done the client work, you've got the reputation now, a bit of a brand. You got some profits, you've taken out dividends, whatever. You got a bit of a war chest now, and you're like, all right, I'm done with client work. I'm going to give this a crack. How are you seeing that quick transition? Obviously, they're getting the finance now. How do they keep going? Like, is it they're using the profits and then just refunneling it, like recycling it, using the bank, or are some using just straight cash?
No, most are borrowing. Most successful people will always say, if I can borrow the money from the bank at 6%, why not? Costs will always blow out. Cash is your king. Cash is your friend, and it allows you to jump on other projects as well. So keeping your cash and not pouring it all into one project. As you're coming to the end of your first project and the next great bit of land pops up, you can go hard because you've got the cash. I think on that point as well, I do hear often or sometimes people making that transition, and they say, oh yeah, but I'm fine on the first one to pay double rates, so I'm going with a lesser lender. If that's the only option, or and everyone's got a different profile, that's fine. But the difference between a bank and a second, third, fourth tier lender is monumental. Monumental on the cost, monumental on the pressure, on a timeline pressure. If a second or third tier lender, if you've told them, hey, my timeline's 18 months, come 18 months, they're like, where's my money? And then they will start making it increasingly hard to get that money back, whether they push the rates up, where banks are very liquid in Australia, and because of that, they will wait for the right person. They will not put the pressure on. Of course, you can only push it so far, but not having that pressure on you to sell at the end or sell for a loss is huge. So again, make sure you do that. Getting your finance is as critical a piece as any other. And I think some people don't realize that. And if someone says, yep, I'll give you the money, they go, oh, I've got the money. And is that the best option? And there's such a difference between the best option and another option. Or a option.
So true. And then what about in terms of they're coming to the end. Like some people are buying things before the sale even happens. Like how are they navigating that from a structure point of view, or how have you seen the best do it anyway?
Yeah, I mean, banks. So when you start flipping your own properties, and this has been, around for a while, spec building, etc., they'll just historical the data. So if you're making no money, good money every second year when you sell they'll just look at averaging that profit that you're making out over a number of years.
Yep.
And then using that. So how, again, people that do it well is not pushing the budget or the boundaries to the breaking point.
Great advice.
Is stepping up, and it's hard because it's stepping up slow enough that they can and you would have talked to you talk to your older people at the end of their career, and they're patient, right? They've been patient through the bad times,
so true,
and they've jumped at the good times. So if your first project that you go and do nearly breaks you or does break you, it's probably making sure you leave some cash on the table or leave some, so you can jump on the next project, or so you can wait and so you can. And that's really good advice, or really important, is making sure that you're not at breaking point, and actually considering, how am I going to pay this back? Am I going to be able to have those holding costs? And knowing that up front.
Yeah.
Or as early as you can.
Because that's another thing too. I've seen a few builders, owner builders, even just your general mum and dads who are starting to get into it, but they nearly get too excited, and they've nearly got like 3 to 4 on the run before this one's even hit the market. They're under contract here. Then they end up finding another, it's nearly, yes, opportunity, I believe in, search slow, act fast, but like there's also the other, like you can't be acting too fast either, right?
Yeah. Especially if it's your first time and you've taken on most of the role yourself and you haven't got that market feedback. If you already started second and third project without getting the market feedback on the first one,
true.
Are you, going quite far down the rabbit hole without knowing? I think that's super important. And banking in Australia is very regulated. And this is the other thing I guess I'll say is banking in Australia is probably the most regulated of anywhere in the world.
It is, yeah.
But finance is not necessarily that regulated. So the difference between a first tier bank and a second, third, fourth tier lender is monumental in terms of their risk profile, in terms of their guidance, in terms of what they will and won't do, and in terms of their ruthlessness, I will also say.
Yeah.
If things go bad, banks are liquid, and people would be astounded to see how reasonable they are. You'll hear the odd bad news story on a current affair, but generally speaking, they will wait and they will wait and they will put no pressure on customers. Other people are, and you hear the term predatory lending, and it is true. If you take that, if the only option is that, be prepared that you need to really nail your timeline.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, there is no regulation on what they will and won't do.
Yeah, really good point. So the key lesson there is obviously your big banks are probably harder to obtain funding, but in saying that, if things hit the wall and you're in a bit of stress, there's a bit of breathing space there. Like they're, a bit more understanding by the sound. But the other opportunity is, look, if you're just scraping finance through and you're using maybe a second, third tier lender, just be mindful that, hey, if you haven't budgeted this correctly or timelined it well, things blow out. They will be coming to you and asking, where's our money?
Yeah, and we do a lot of finance. We do a lot of knockdown rebuild finance. We'll take a lot longer. We'll take longer than others sometimes on the lead in, because I'm committed to putting you with the right bank and putting you with the right solution. And I and other brokers, good brokers that are experienced and have done this, I just won't put you with. If I can get you finance at someone I don't believe is the right, I just won't do it. I just won't offer you the option, or I'll say it's not the right option.
Yeah.
So be wary of someone just giving you a very quick answer. It's if the and question the person that you're getting the finance off. Have you done this before? Have you done it yourself? What happens if this happens? What happens? And if they can't answer those questions, maybe reassess if they're the right person to guide you through that. Similar to a builder, right? If the bank stops the builder doing it, or if you don't feel like the builder's capable of doing it, you're not going to proceed.
Yeah.
So maybe the person, giving you that advice doesn't have the moral compass, or doesn't care that you can't finish. They've got their commission up front.
Yeah.
And you're stuck halfway through.
Yeah.
So waiting a bit longer at the start, it doesn't necessarily mean that or most of the time will mean that you have a better outcome.
Yeah, I love that. Just mindful of time, man. I'm absolutely loving this episode. Just super deep dive specific. I wanted to go lastly on a key topic I'm hearing a lot more on the Gold Coast, JVs, joint ventures. So how, for the everyday punter listening, they've heard it, they want to try it, they know they've got some mates, my mate's a chippy and I'm an IT, I've got the cash, he's got the skills, or she's interior designer and my friend's wife's, got a trade back. Like how does that work? Like how would a JV work, or where have you seen the JVs go well from a finance perspective?
I think it's a great idea. If you each bring different things to the table. So if someone's bringing the cash and someone's bringing the skills, great. If someone's bringing the experience and someone, if you're all bringing the same thing, not as good. I've seen it happen countless times really successfully, where you might have I've got a situation now where you've got some young, enthusiastic, intelligent customers that just needed an extra little bit of cash. And so they're getting that cash with a joint venture with a person that's 20 years their senior, who's providing the cash and the experience. Or you'll see ones where you've got a builder that has a lot of experience, but you've got a great site. So the age-old one where you've been sitting on the site for 10 years, it's worth a fortune. You potentially can't get the finance, but the best use for that site is a great project and aligning yourself with a builder that can't find a site. Or is ready to go now and doesn't want to wait the 2 years.
Gotcha.
So I think joint ventures are a great thing, especially on your first one.
Yeah. And then how does that look like then? Like that exact scenario, because that's so common. Like someone might have a house, they got no idea where to start to knock down, rebuild. Their mate's a really gun builder. Hey, let's team up, do the profits together. Is that kind of how it works? Like would one go to the bank, do this process you're saying around getting the finance obtained, and then they complete the project, for instance, and then they sell, and then they, I guess, split it down the middle, or whatever the agreement up front is?
And yeah, it's good, interesting that you say that, because I think that's super important, is the agreement up front.
Up front, yeah.
Having the discussion up front, getting it on paper so everyone knows where they sit.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind, whoever owns the land is the only person that can get finance. If you come in as a third party, if you come in as the builder, you can't use that land that you don't own to get finance because you don't own it. What's the financial benefit of doing that? If and again, depending on your broker, depending on your individual circumstances, potentially, the bank can know and can go, well, my financial benefit is the funds I get out of this. But most of the time, if that's the case, you're sitting on a valuable piece of land and you've got your DA ready to go and you can't execute the build. Most of the time, the builder will have to come with his own finance, whether it's their own cash or cash out of their own property, to then be able to complete that build. And you have to have a mutual agreement where the benefit lies. So I'm providing the land, I'm providing that you can start on it straight away, and we can make a profit on the end of this. And I might get one of the properties at cost, or we might split and whatever your agreement is up front. But yeah, if you don't own the land, that you
can't get finance for that particular land. Yeah, but if you own the land, if you're someone listening right now, you own the block, could be a juicy medium density block or something. You have no idea how to execute on it's a great block, can't execute it. What it sounds like is you could bring your site to a builder. The builder obtains like construction finance, I'm assuming, to complete the construction on your block. And then at the end of the project, just say you built 2 villas on it, it's all agreed upon at the start. As you said, maybe we own one each. Maybe we sell them both and split it. Maybe we rent one out, whatever. So is that right? The construction loan is the loan portion.
And the builder has to have their own finance. And that's a very unique, not unique. That's a very detailed conversation that builder needs to have with me or a broker, how they get that finance, whether it's from their own funds or borrowed funds. And yes, you need to see where the mutual benefit lies for both parties. But yeah, you definitely it's definitely a good idea. and it might become a better outcome for the person that owns the land
Yep.
than them just selling the land as is
Yeah,
for someone
as
else
is.
to do the whole process.
100%. Yeah, it's a low hanging fruit opportunity, especially here on the Gold Coast where some of the zoning's really good. The back end products are selling pretty well in good locations. Just lastly on the JV, all right, scenario that I feel is also common on the Gold Coast. Owner of the block, got a group of mates, they're all pooling cash together or pooling funds and stuff like without finance. Again, is that possible? Like, are people doing that too, where it's like there's 6 or 7 people jumping in to complete? There's a builder over here. There's 6 a family or something. Like, how could that work if the funds aren't there for people?
Yeah, we definitely see that, and I think finding a good broker will give you advice, and I talk about this all the time, is making sure you're getting good independent advice and not advice that is benefiting the person giving you the advice. So I will give advice to people. Yes, use your own funds. Don't borrow it, which is, directly impacts my business, but it's the right thing for the customer. So yes, again, if you have a shareholders agreement, if you have an agreement drawn up at the start that everyone's happy with, well then 100%. Using your own. And again, you might have borrowed those funds. Might not just be sitting on a pool of cash. You might have an asset that you own in your own name. They have a heap of equity and you just cashed out. The bank's allowed you to cash out for future investment. And there's 5 of you, and 5 of you have cashed out 500,000 each. And then you bring 2.5 million to the table for this project. And then you do the project and then you sell.
Got it. Yes. So I guess the key basis there is you may be sitting on a site. Just say there's 5 of you, group of mates or whatever. I see this on a lot. They're all sitting on owner ox on the Gold Coast. They made a lot of equity. They don't want to sell it to liquidate, use the money. So they could go to the bank, use the equity from the house they've got. Just say they've all got 200 grand equity in their house, which is very normal. They pool the 200 grand all together. For argument's sake, they could have $1 million cash or borrowed against the bank. They buy something, or that they use the $1 million to build or buy a site or whatever. They sell, and then as long as they pay back that 200 grand and then the profit, they essentially keep. Is that in a nutshell?
Yeah, essentially in that situation, if you're all individual and you've got your individual circumstances, some are married, some have got kids, some are single, bring your own money from cashing out on your properties. You can then borrow on, like if you set up a unit trust or a company or whatever, you buy the site, you borrow on the site, and then you use your cash to do the build. And then that could be the start of the next part of your life, right? That could be the start of, hey, this worked really well, let's go again and again. And you just leave the profits in that company.
In the company trust.
And you go again and again. And then the next site you need to borrow less. Or you borrow the same, but you do a bigger build. Or you do 2 units or 3 units or a pack of units. Or so, yeah, I think, that diversifying the risk, diversifying the time, diversifying the skill set is great.
And just a little learning, isn't it? It's just like splitting the risk among a lot of people there as well. Hey,
yeah, and try and find your different skill sets. Someone might be the designer, someone's the structural engineer, someone's the builder, someone's the accountant, someone's the
You mentioned a really good point there. The biggest tip I can give there, going through it myself, is you mentioned before, accountant, like the structure, the entity side, the company trust versus huge. Because when it comes sale time, if you haven't got the structure set up properly, as you said, there's all different. Obviously, we can't give financial advice, but chat to your accountant around how that would look, work, feel, tax implications.
The last thing I'll say on that topic is make sure you have the same person doing the whole thing.
Yeah,
because it's very, very hard. Well, it's impossible for someone to give correct advice if they don't know all the pieces to the puzzle. So don't try and keep your cards close to you. Like, if you've committed to doing something together, allow the broker, allow the accountant to know everything, because so they can know how this impacts everyone. If you want to try and say, no, we're going to do this together, but everything else I'm keeping myself, or I'm keeping with my own bank or my own broker, very hard, because this impacts that, impacts this, and then all of a sudden, again, you get to the thing where you've tripped yourself up because the person giving you advice didn't know about that at the start. So if you're all in, present all your cards. And this is whether you're doing it with a group of people or doing it yourself. Be open, be honest, be raw with the person you're talking to. This is what I need to do. How do I get there?
Yeah. So have it all out from the front. And it really comes down to, at the end of the day, understanding what it is you actually want, why, from the get-go, really, isn't it? And that's probably the last tip I can give for anyone listening. And I know a stack of people are going to get value out of this episode because we've gone deep. But at the end of the day, what's the why of it all? Like, is it financial freedom? Is it the family? Is it more time? And like, just really understand the why, because everything me and Ollie unpacked over, the last hour and a bit, there's complex, there is risk involved. There's resilience will be needed. You will think like, what have I done? At least 10 times.
Yeah.
So it's not for everyone. I'll straight up say that all of what we've spoken about is not for everyone. You have to understand it. So surround yourself with the right people, because to even enter this space, if you're on the Gold Coast right now, you have to be in the right mindset.
Yeah.
You have to have the right mindset from the get-go. But again, me and Ollie see it time and time, because we're kind of in the industry. Some people right now on the Gold Coast are doing extremely well.
Yes.
Yeah, and you would see a lot of people's finances. Some people are making very good profits right now, and you would have no idea. And all it is they made a decision, got the right people in their corners, didn't, I love the word calculated risk. That's probably my key takeaway after learning from today, Ollie, is calculated risk. You have to take risk, but it's got to be calculated. And understanding, like, everything, start with the end in mind, by the sounds of it. Yeah.
The on all of that, the duck analogy, like, successful people, if it was easy, everyone would do it. That's what I say to my staff. That's what I say to people. Like, to your point, it's not easy. It's not for everyone. People that are the most successful at doing it, you'll meet them and they're very calm and they're calculated, but they're having some big challenges in their day. Yep. And they're getting through those challenges with a clear head and staying calm and building good relationships. But it's not easy. So don't go in with a belief that, this is smooth sailing. I just buy my site, I do my DA, the builder builds it, and I make $1 million.
Yeah.
That ain't happening.
So, it's not happening.
Yeah. It's definitely be prepared, like anything.
Yeah.
Risk and reward, effort and outcomes. So. You can, to your point, there's people making exceptionally good money and there's people not.
Yeah, really good point, mate. A bit of fire to finish. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like, just remember, the shows like The Block, man, there's a lot of people behind the scene. It's not that easy to get trades. Just like that.
Oh, yeah. And look at The Block. I mean, it's people that do the whole show and don't make any money.
Yeah, true.
With all the publicity.
Exactly right. Well, mate, that was unreal. That was our first little series. We're going to do more of. If you had feedback on Finance Unpacked, I just think, again, it's my favorite saying. It's a game of finance. Winning in real estate is purely a game of finance, especially here on the Gold Coast. As I said, we might get you on later on in the year as well. We'll unpack something else. If you're a finance professional on the Gold Coast, you got a topic or anything you think is something that's a pain point on the Gold Coast right now, let me know. Definitely want to try and add value to everyone out there on the coast. But, mate, that topic there, I just think that was an absolute masterclass. So maybe we might use that, and we can use that on all different platforms, because I think the amount of lessons in there, I think, are invaluable to everyone on the coast. So, mate, really appreciate your time. And lastly, if anyone's looking at this, where can they find you? Obviously, to have your brain part of their process.
Stonestrowfinance.com.au. All the details are on there. I love this. I love property. I love development. I've done it. I do it personally. I've done it personally. I see it day in, day out. So, I'd love to chat to you about it. It fires me up. It gets me excited. So
sick. And I'd be rude to ask, mate, interest rates, just quickly, what's the go? What are we having the shaves down? Or what?
They're dropping.
They're dropping, yeah?
I'll put it out there to say you're definitely getting a drop in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
How much? Who knows? But they're definitely dropping.
Yeah, I agree too.
Which will only push up prices, which will only push up demand, which will only push up. Yeah.
Don't wait. I'm very eager to see what happens on the coast this year. So, mate, appreciate your time, Ollie. Love it.
Thank you.